sir. Let's do it. Let's ride. And we are live. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Stokastic DFS channel, and thank you to the NFL for giving us yet another incredible primetime game. But we do have an incredible showdown live before lock today. My name is Matt Savoca at Draftaholic, and we have got just the team to break this barn burner down. It's the Bears at the Patriots. Justin Fields versus Mac Jones, apparently, and we've got Matt Gajewski, the king of the NCAA and the NFL DFS streets. Follow him at Matt_Gajewski. How are you this evening, man?
I'm doing good, man. My Chicago Bears are on the slate, so a little more excitement for me than we've had on recent Mondays. You know, no Broncos. I know that's probably an enjoyment for some, but we get the Bears instead. Maybe that's just interesting to me, but, you know, I'll speak for the people here. I'm excited for this.
How could you not be excited? It's football. It's Monday night, and we, of course, have the Sultan of Showdown. Is that what they tried to say?
The Showdown Shaman. Come on.
The Showdown Shaman is what we've landed on.
Good alliteration,
Showdown
though.
Shaman.
You also know how to alliterate, just like Laufey. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm wearing my XFL
step on
hat.
Laufey's toes, even if he's over there in the NBA streets over on our other stream. We have to use his nickname. But Neil Orfield, truly one of the best showdown and overall DFS NFL players in the world right now. Follow him at PlayerQDFS. Neil, happy to have you here. Happy to be doing more shows with you in this second half of the NFL season so far. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I've done shows with both of you. I've never been on a show with both Matts at the same time, as far as I remember. I'm wearing my XFL hat tonight because I'm hearing that there's going to be a lot of XFL scouts in the stands tonight watching this game.
XFL fans.
Thank you for that laugh.
That was a good one, man. I'm a huge XFL fan. I love the hat. I see you wear that all the time.
I'm all for the alternative hat. Maybe one day the XFL won't be alternative, but right now it is. And we can't go into the intro too far without talking about our incredible sponsor, No House Advantage. We have an awesome offer from our friends over there. I haven't even checked in a few hours, but I bet you anything there's overlay for tonight's tournament on No House Advantage. We'll get into the action. You guys know what to do. Make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. We're YouTube veterans here. I'm seeing a lot of members in the chat. I'm seeing it pop off as usual. And yeah, I guess we got to dig into this one. That's our duty here, to dig into the duty that is the Bears and the Patriots. Bears currently have an implied total of 15.75 points. The Patriots favored, of course, at home, 24.25 points for them. We'll start with you, Neil. What is the most likely game script? What is the way this game goes? It's ugly rushing plays, if you had to shorten it to one phrase. No?
Yeah, ugly rushing plays. I like that. That's a good call. I'm liking these running backs today. I think that is the most. Yeah, we're talking most likely. That is the most likely outcome. I'm with you.
Easy as that. Easy as that. So ultimately, the Bears' run defense. If you look at Football Outsiders DVOA, 27th in rush DVOA and 24th in yards allowed per pass, or excuse me, yards allowed per carry. Matt, are you seeing any more nuances here, any gray areas where, they get Mac Jones back in the New England side, maybe Justin Fields, if they are down multiple scores, they finally look to pass, but in pass rate, over or under expectations, the Bears continue to be the least pass-happy team in the league. Do you see anything here for shootout potential?
Not a ton other than just maybe crazy things happen in games with low-level talent. That could extend itself to the defensive side, but ultimately I don't really see it changing too much. I think they're trying to hide Fields, not necessarily because of any lack of talent on his part, but their offensive line's not great. The receivers are atrocious, and he honestly hasn't been great himself. Then on the other side, the Patriots, I think it's kind of the same thing. They might throw a little bit more with Mac Jones back, but ultimately this isn't a situation where they should really need to air it out too much. I don't see this game getting out of hand in either direction.
I have to say, I see it the same way. I've enjoyed playing this game in each and every show that I host for these showdown slates. We have an over-under of 40 points right now. We'll start with you, Neil, and then we'll go to you, Matt. What is the probability, just off the top of your head, that you think this game goes to a shootout? 7 points over the implied total right now or more. That would be 47 combined points for these teams, just off the top of your head, Neil.
25%. I think that, these are bad defenses. I mean, I guess the Patriots not quite as bad as the Bears defense, but neither of those defenses is great. So I could see it happen. I'd say, 20-25%.
1-4 or so, 1-5 to 1-4. Matt, how about you? Same question.
It's probably a bad answer, but 50%. I think lines are efficient in college football, or excuse me, in NFL, college football as well, honestly. That's not what we're talking about here, but I think if this line is spot on, as we assume closing lines in NFL are, there's a 50% chance this goes over.
Okay, but I'm talking about in terms of a touchdown over, so that we're bringing in shootout potential, the fact that we want to play lineups that way, right? Because a lot of people are just building 1 to 10 lineups. They want to hand build with the narrative they have in mind. They want to be a little bit contrarian. So what are the chances that this game has true shootout potential? And for this game, that's just 47 or more points on the board.
Yeah, I agree with Neil.
1-5, 1-4. Guys, I think it's closer to 1-10. I think it's really, really
might
low.
Be a little high. Yeah.
I mean, I get when we're talking about showdown lineups and DFS and good fundamentals, we want to talk about ways that this can go right for one of these offenses. But truly, I mean, the run defenses on both sides, if I look at DVOA, yards allowed per rush or yards allowed per pass, it doesn't look like either team will have to deviate from their typically conservative offensive schemes. I don't know if there's really much else to get to. We didn't have a huge amount of actives or inactives news here other than the quarterback situation, which was kind of up in the air all week for the New England Patriots. How much does the expected change from Bailey Zappi to Mac Jones change the Patriots' outlook for you, Matt Gajewski?
Not a lot. Zappi was actually pretty good out there as a replacement for Mac Jones. I do expect Mac Jones to be a little bit better. There was no question that they were bringing him back as the starter. So maybe a slight upgrade to the offense. But honestly, when Mac went down, Zappi ran the offense fairly well. So I don't think it's a drastic change.
Okay. Neil, how about you? Are you feeling the same way, or is Mac Jones a upgrade? Is it a downgrade?
I was going to say thank you for asking that question to Matt Gajewski, because he is the guy to ask that question. I'm not a great talent evaluator. I think it's an upgrade, but I don't have any semblance of an idea of how much of an upgrade is between these two quarterbacks in particular. I don't think that I actually watched a full Patriots game with Bailey Zappi. I don't think I've ever actually watched Bailey Zappi play. So I am not the right guy for that question. That's a great Matt Gajewski question. So
Hold
I'll
on. Are
trust
you
his
saying
answer
you
there.
don't film grind every single Bailey Zappi snap as a
I
full-time
watch
DFS player?
Yeah, it's shocking, right? Yeah, I watch every Island game. I watch whatever's on the TV here throughout Sunday. Other than that, I don't go out of my way. Other than like highlights, I don't watch full games.
What are we doing here? No, I'm of course kidding. And I see it the way you're seeing it, Matt. What is the real evidence that we have that Mac Jones is a significant upgrade over Bailey Zappi in QBR, one of my favorite advanced metrics for the quarterback? Mac Jones was 28th in the NFL, 34th so far this season in true passer rating. I guess he's been a little bit better in deep ball accuracy rating than Bailey Zappi, but in the red zone, it's fallen apart for Mac Jones, 22nd among quarterbacks in accuracy rating. In that same exact measurement, red zone accuracy rating, Bailey Zappi, 7th best in the NFL, and in true passer rating, actually in that small sample, number 1 in the NFL. I don't think it's that good. I think that's a little bit of variability, but I think there's a point you could make that this offense actually looked better with Bailey Zappi. Okay, so if you're looking at the lineups, you're looking at salaries tonight, does this change how you're approaching defenses, kickers, running backs? If you feel very confident, like we kind of do in the way that this game is approached by both offenses, how do you get different in a slate like this, Neil?
I mean, you do things like I like to do on a lot of slates, which is I think this is a great slate to play defense against quarterback. We've seen Mac Jones has thrown 5 interceptions in 3 games this year. He threw 13 interceptions last year, also fumbled it 7 times. That includes fumbles recovered by the offense, but he is turnover prone. So I think you can play the Bears defense against Mac Jones. That's a great way to get different on this slate, I think.
Well, I think we should pause right there for a minute, because also you should talk about some fantasy cruncher things that you do here. I know that you break this down, but go into that for a minute, because there's probably some default settings that we should tell the people about if you're using Fantasy Cruncher or you're new to it.
Yeah, so if you are new to Fantasy Cruncher, so I do multiple VODs every Monday and Thursday. I've been doing videos on demand that show you just exactly how I set up my Fantasy Cruncher. I don't show you my entire process because it's tedious. It's just going bit by bit and changing projections here and there, or giving thumbs up here and there, I should say. But the things that I do show, I team salary, I set a salary cap limit. So I never use the full salary on DraftKings because I'm setting up for the largest field GPPs. I'm trying to avoid being duplicated. That's one thing that I do is I set a salary cap max that's lower than 50,000 to avoid those huge trains like we saw last night, where every winner won $900. So the 150 maxers who were in that train lost money as a result of winning that slate. I mean, I also lost money because I didn't win, but those are not lineups that I'm trying to create. So I set a max salary, offensive players versus defense. I think this is what you're getting at. The default is now actually set to 2. It used to be set to 0. They've changed it, which is great. In Showdown too, default, you can have up to 2 players against your defense. I changed that to 5, and I think that's extra important on this slate. There are some slates I do it, and I think, what are the chances that it's just the defense of like the Bengals versus the Chiefs, for example? Like there's probably going to be an offensive player from both teams. On this slate, I think setting that to 5 offensive players potentially against just the defense from the other team is extra viable, because one of these offenses could just not score any points and not put up a lot of fantasy points, whereas the defense might have a pick 6 or something. So that's something that I do in Fantasy Cruncher. I think those are the 2 main things that I do to try to get a little bit unique.
And I think that was an absolutely fantastic breakdown, if I don't say so myself. And it kind of goes to your point and right into the super chat. Fantastic segue, Neil. Jorge, you're always hanging out in here, always so generous with your time, and we're happy to see you continuing on the hot streak. Neil mentioned that you split it up with so many people, but Jorge says with the $5 super chat, thanks to Neil, changed my lineup construction strategy and won first on yesterday's showdown. Sadly, it was madly split with 250 people, but a shout out to Neil, much deserved to you as well. I don't think there's really much more to say about the game flow here. Usually there's lots of ranges of outcomes, lots of receivers who could theoretically pop off. I mean, we'll obviously break down every single position on both teams here, and if we have some time, we'll build a lineup. But it was important to contextualize how you're breaking things down, how you change the optimizers, and especially when some people are like, wait, this person Neil's saying to play is not going to get any targets at all. Well, it's because Neil is trying to be unique, trying to take down the largest field GPPs, and he's been pretty darn successful at it. Gajewski, any other things you want to point out in terms of game flow, game environment, how actives and actives change? Are you ready to move on to our team-by-team breakdown?
Yeah, I'm ready to get into it.
Of course you are. I am too. But before we do, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at No House Advantage. They've upped the game at No House Advantage. That's really all I can say. They've improved the way the platform looks. It looks fantastic over there. They've got way more ways to play and to win over there. And honestly, they did one more thing that is just an extra icing on the cake. It's now a $50 first match deposit bonus when you use the link in the video description below. We'll put it in the comments as well. No House Advantage is a new way to play, a new twist on the statistical projections you're using to power your DFS lineups as well. And we've got a No House Advantage tool for the NFL absolutely free over on Stokastic.com. A great way to play, a great way to start winning. Use the link in the video description below to get going and winning today. Ah, the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears. Chicago is a lovely city. Got to spend some time out there this summer, but not a great football team right now. Not projected for 16 points, at least in the Vegas books. What do we think about Justin Fields? Obviously, the ability as a rusher is what's affecting the fantasy upside. Gajewski, how are you approaching Justin Fields on this slate?
He's an interesting play, and I think we could talk about this slate contextually as a whole first, because we have no value plays. So it's leading people to a specific role, and it's honestly driving some negative leverage for really a lot of the most expensive players on the slate. Because if you do roster somebody in the price range of a Justin Fields, of a Ramondre, of a David Montgomery, you're making significant concessions, and you're probably ending up playing guys like Jonnu Smith and players that don't project all that well. So there's a lot of players in this expensive range that bring negative leverage scores, Justin Fields being one of them. So immediately with Justin Fields himself, we know there's upside. He's a mobile quarterback. He's had games where he's popped up for decent passing volume, but on the year altogether, it's not great. He's also extremely turnover worthy or turnover prone. I was looking at some props this morning. He was minus 180 to throw an interception. That's about a 65% chance. And he averages under 20 attempts per game, which is just unbelievable to actually see listed by a book out there, but it was there. All this to say, in a vacuum, I think Fields is fine on a slate like this. Don't love his price.
He has had, let me see, 1, 2, 3 games this season with a 50% or below completion percentage on that decrepit low volume. So really, this is rushing and more rushing. And thankfully, in carries per game, he's quarterback 3 so far. And in red zone carries per game, he's 4th among all quarterbacks heading into this game. Neil, is that sort of what's powering your projection for Justin Fields? And then explain how you're kind of dealing with him and working around Justin Fields' salary tonight.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough with the salary. I think I am working in a few more of these, a few of these kind of cheaper guys. Matt is right that there really aren't any really cheap guys that are great. I do like some mid-range plays though, which allows me to get to Justin Fields, and you can pair Justin Fields with some of those kind of mid-range Bears receiving options. So I'm actually getting to a good amount of Justin Fields currently. We have him at 46% ownership. No, sorry, that's Ramondre. We have him at 40% ownership in the util spot, 40% optimal. So looks very neutral there. We have him owned in the captain spot 8% of the time, optimal 6.5% of the time. So a little bit of negative leverage on Justin Fields. I'm still working through my lineups. I like him because of the rushing upside. Obviously, he has the upside to have 100 yards rushing, and of course, he's only done that once in his career so far, so it's not the likeliest outcome. He did get to 88 rushing yards in the last Bears game, though, so we know that he has the upside. So I'm going to get to a fair amount of Justin Fields, but I'm not going to be getting to like 70-80% like I do. Actually, currently I actually am under the field on Justin Fields, which is good, knowing that he has some negative leverage in our tools. I'm a little bit under the field on Justin Fields, but not a ton. I'm actually getting a good amount of Justin Fields in the captain spot. Of course, this also happens because of the way I build. So I use groups, and in my groups, I say if I have Justin Fields as the captain, give boost to his pass catchers. Well, what happens then is I automatically get more of the quarterback in my builds because I'm giving those boosts to the pass catchers. Those lineups are going to project better. So currently I have 20%. Maybe I'll give him the thumbs down in the captain spot to kind of offset some of that. Of course, the last time I did that was when I had Andy Dalton in the captain spot, 20%. And I was like, there's no way I want 20% Andy Dalton. And then, of course, he went all the way off. So I'll probably do it, but hopefully I won't regret it later.
So we have to give that usual asterisk, the caveat that we typically give at this point when we're talking about the negatives, the downsides of playing a quarterback, the warts on the profile, if you will. Still a quarterback on a 1-game slate. Yep. Still a quarterback that rushes the 3rd highest amount for his position. This is still a player with a ceiling potential, particularly if you're playing on FanDuel and you don't have to deal with the salary multiplier, that has a huge chance of being the optimal MVP or captain play, depending on the platform you're playing on. But again, if you're trying to take down a huge tournament, trying to get unique, trying not to split a first place lineup with a bunch of people, one way of getting unique is by being under the field when you make multiple lineups on Justin Fields. Is that sort of how you're seeing it, Matt? I mean, Justin Fields still has 25 to 30 point upside if everything breaks right, no?
Yeah, if you're building that way, you can certainly make constructions with him. He's among the players with negative leverage scores. He's the least negatively leveraged, so it's very close with him. Pretty much a neutral play. I think Neil brings up a great point, is you can stack him with some really cheap options. So I'm going to play a little bit of Justin Fields, and I am going to use these cheaper stacks. I think Mooney's fine for the target alpha with this team. Say that hesitantly, because alpha for Darnell Mooney sometimes has been about a 30% target share that actually equates to 4 on-field targets. But when they are in pass-heavy sets, when they're down in games, that will bump significantly, as we've seen in recent weeks, which has been a relief. But it's not just Mooney. Once you get down to the cheap players, you've got Cole Kmet in an every down role. Like most of the pass catchers on this team, he's been underachieving and wildly volatile, but that's just going to be the Chicago Bears. And it's probably going to get a lot of these guys under owned, as we're seeing in some of the tools. Like Cole Kmet has a positive leverage score. He's barely owned. So there's going to be a lot of these Bears catchers. I try to stack with Fields. It's not going to be the approach I take in most of my lineups, I'll say that. But when I am doing this, it is trying to hit on one of these like lotto ticket cheap Bears receivers.
Underachieving and wildly volatile. The story of the Bears' last 40 seasons. That'll be a documentary.
Hey, they had a Super Bowl.
They got there. I recognize that. That's wildly volatile, right? The up with the down.
Like returning the opening kickoff in that Super Bowl and then going on to lose. Like, my goodness.
Oh, man. Giving kind of the Peyton Gimme Super Bowl is kind of how people remember it. But
I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even know who Peyton Gimme is.
No, Peyton Gimme Super Bowl.
Manning kind of got a gimme in terms of Super Bowl win because Rex Grossman was not doing anything in a rainy game on the other side. It was we overshortened that for all the people who don't just have the 2008 season just like ready to roll at the top of our heads. Sam Pierce, thank you so much for the super chat. We are going to get to the tight end position of the New England side a little bit later. But just to give you one quick word, Hunter Henry is positively leveraged a captain. We're going to get there. I just want to keep rolling on here just so we get to everything before kickoff, but appreciate the super chat, man. And thanks for being a member too as well. Okay, so Justin Fields, it's not looking great, but quarterback on a 1-game slate. I'll tell you what else isn't looking great. David Montgomery's efficiency. Every time I look at these metrics, it makes me want to cry. And he's pretty darn expensive. If you want to use him at the captain position today over at DraftKings, it's going to be nearly 16. What are you doing, Neil, with David Montgomery? He's probably going to get the touches, but it's probably not going to look good.
Yeah, so I guess we have to ask ourselves, in the week and a half since the last time the Bears played, have they figured out that Khalil Herbert is their better running back? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Have they figured it out? Are they going to give Khalil Herbert a bigger workload? Because they haven't been. They've been giving Montgomery the workload. My guess is that they will not learn from past mistakes and that they'll continue to give David Montgomery that workload. So I'm going to have a good amount of David Montgomery in my lineups. Just looking at our tools, he is looking a little bit over-owned. We have him owned 8.2% in the captain spot, 3.3% optimal, owned 32.1% in the utility spot, 29.6% optimal. He is the most expensive player on the slate. He should not be the most expensive player on the slate. But I'll be under the field, but I'm not going to be significantly under the field, I don't think.
Hey, some positives. A dozen or more carries in all but one game this season. 15 or more in 3 of 5 games so far this year. Anything, Matt? I mean, you go in here, this salary just seems all out of whack.
Yeah, I think it's a couple things we're assuming. First of all, it's that this is going to be some semblance of a timeshare because Khalil Herbert has a projection. It's not very good, but I think that's largely because they're projecting some sort of split between these guys. And then at their prices, I mean, their team total is just so low. So some of these New England guys are going to come in higher projected just because their team total is higher and they have a much higher scoring expectation. So I don't see the workload vastly different between David Montgomery versus like Ramondre Stevenson, but the scoring upside is a lot worse. And at his price, it's just hard to envision him, if you're playing like cash or something low risk, him being in your optimal lineup. But for tournaments, if this goes against the conventional spread here, Montgomery has a pretty good role in this offense. So you could see the path to a ceiling. It's just at what cost? Like probably 4 or 5 Patriots need to fail at their prices. And then you also need to hit on your punts because he is the most expensive player on the slate. And like we just talked about, most of these punts are Bears receivers. So if like David Montgomery reaches his ceiling, what punts do we really feel good about in what would probably look like a Bears game early in the season where Fields throws it 12 to 15 times? Again, that would be assuming that that's kind of like the way Montgomery hits his ceiling. So I'm really struggling to play him. I'm going to try to use him a little bit because he does have that touch upside, but it's tough to see the path.
Right. The opportunity value, you're paying a whole lot in salary for security, right? You're paying a whole lot for the 15 to 17 touches you're hoping for. And I guess in a cash game environment, that might make sense. Let's just break this down over the last 2 games. David Montgomery at a 77% snap share compared to Khalil Herbert's 22%. It's 44% of the team attempts for David Montgomery because Fields does get rushes compared to 18 for Herbert. And in red zone rushes, Montgomery's only got a 4-2 lead over Herbert. And as we mentioned earlier, Justin Fields, in terms of rush attempts as well, he's gobbling some up as well. So when you're talking about a low team total, so low touchdown expectation on a per drive basis, and competition for the valuable touches, the small amount of valuable touches that this Bears backfield has, I think it is a tough proposition when you're talking about tournaments. That's the bottom line here. But now let's talk about Khalil Herbert, who from a yards per touch standpoint looks like the better running back, and obviously from a salary saving standpoint looks good too. Neil, we'll shoot it back to you. How are you handling Herbert this week?
Yeah, so I'm sort of adjusting right after I just said that I like Montgomery and I'm going to get close to the field. I think I'm adjusting to get more Herbert and a little bit less Montgomery, going against my instincts a little bit, just because I think that Khalil Herbert has the more upside if the Bears have learned in the past week. And if they just look at the basic box score, look at the yards per attempt that Khalil Herbert gives you versus Montgomery, it's unlikely that they're going to adjust. But if they just adjust a little bit, I think that there is a lot more upside in Khalil Herbert at 14% projected ownership at 5,400 than there is in David Montgomery at 10,632% projected ownership. So I'm actually flipping a little bit, and I think I'm going to try to get above the field on Khalil Herbert and maybe go under the field on David Montgomery.
Matt, same question.
Yeah, I like Herbert more, and it's partially what I was trying to suggest with Montgomery. It's like, if Montgomery reaches his ceiling, how do the Bears pass catchers get there that are cheap, that are probably in your lineup as well to make everything work? You don't have that problem with Herbert because he's significantly cheaper. Like, you could play Herbert with any sort of combination of Mac Jones lineups with pass catchers that actually work game script wise. And then Herbert's just not that expensive either. So he doesn't need to do as well to pay off that salary. So you could theoretically play him with Fields too. And like Neil said, we don't know what the Bears are going to do. I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to play this intelligently, but we'll see.
I agree. Okay, so I've seen it being pointed out in the chat that this answer might be neither. And, you know, there are some metrics I look at where New England looks just nasty, specifically against the running back position in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed, which just takes fantasy points allowed and adjusts it for the offenses that have played against them already or how those offenses have performed. New England is the number 1, the toughest defense in the NFL against the running back position. So I'd rather invest less salary there. I should mention there are some metrics that say they're so-so. 26th in Football Outsiders rush defensive DVOA, 22nd in yards allowed per carry. That tends to be a highly variable metric there. Ultimately, I think Khalil Herbert is a way I'd rather play it if I'm choosing one or the other. Herbert's 6.5 yards per touch are third best among all running backs in the NFL. Anything else you guys want to add, Neil, on the running back position? You guys ready to go over the wide receivers? Those amazing Bears wide receivers.
So you put it to me because I'm usually the guy who likes to play weird plays. I don't have a lot of confidence in either of these guys, Treston Ebner or Blossingame, and I kind of wanted to throw that to you guys. See if either of you have a take. Are either of these guys playable in the largest field GPP?
Matt, how you feeling there?
Not great, but here's kind of their roles. Ebner is a pass catching back. That's really all he does. He worked in a timeshare last year with Abram Smith and Baylor. They had very defined roles. Ebner was their pass catching back. So in the preseason, they kind of trotted him out in this regard. He was splitting with Darrington Evans, but they haven't really used the pass game specific back since they had Tariq Cohen. It's kind of just been Montgomery in that role. So I'm not confident he gets on the field. And Blassingame's a fullback. So I wouldn't play Blasingame.
Would they ever use him like on a goal line just to vulture a touchdown? They don't
maybe
really
he
use
could
him
be
that way.
you're a Minnesota fan. Maybe he could be the Bears CJ Ham.
I mean, I've played CJ Ham. It's never worked out for me.
I can't believe you not playing CJ Ham has not been fruitful. But these are the kinds of risks Neil is fantastic at taking. You know, these are the kinds of off the wall ideas, the way that this game flow goes just a little bit differently than expectations. So I think it's worth bringing up. I would say any player who's going to get, say, a 10-15% snap share is viable as the lowest salary option in your lineup. Is that a decent rule?
Ebner got 3 snaps last week. Blasingame got 6.
But Ebner is more used as a pass catching back. So he might be the more valuable. Those snaps might be more valuable, would you say, than Blasingame?
Yeah, Blasingame blocked on most of them.
Okay.
There you go. Hey, in the largest field tournaments, if you're trying to take down Neil Orfield tonight, I see why you might go there as your very last play. To the wide receiver position we go. Darnell, you mentioned it, Matt. Darnell Mooney is a decent player, and Cole Kmet sometimes can appear. We'll get to the tight end position in a minute, but what in the world do we do with the wide receivers on this team? How do we deal with stacking? Gajewski, like, you have to just single stack Fields. You can't actually double stack him, can you?
You might. This is a price question for me, because if you're stacking him with Mooney, you're probably running into you're either playing the defensive kicker or you're looking at guys like Equanimeous St. Brown who are in that price range as well. So if you're playing Fields in terms of like him hitting a ceiling, like if you're captaining Fields, I think you're probably double stacking him or praying he runs something in. So I don't hate the double stack. I certainly don't love it, but that's more of a price question to me because we don't have any other value. So like a Mooney Cole Kmet stack isn't atrocious. It's not great either, but I'll be certainly looking at that because of price more than talent or opportunity.
It's, as you said, to open things up. There are no value plays because everyone, even in this mid-tier salary range, projected for like a paltry 4.5 points right now in the Stokastic projections. Obviously, Mooney at 7,400, the highest salary and the highest projected. We have him at a whopping 9.6 projected fantasy points over on DraftKings. Pettis, Equanimeous St. Brown, there's a 600 salary difference over on DraftKings, and then you got just flyer picks, Velus Jones and N'Keal Harry. What are the differences that you're seeing, Neil, if anything, Dante Pettis versus Equanimeous St. Brown? Are you just kind of going with salary and ownership? They're both actually negative leverage plays, even at their mid salaries.
Yeah, so I currently am actually below the field. I'm trying to get above the field despite the negative leverage, just because of the way I play, where I'm leaving salary on the table. I actually saw Alex was having this conversation on Twitter. Somebody was asking him, well, Cortland Sutton looked so great. Why did you get under the field? He looked great in the tools. And Alex was explaining, and this is my thought process too. Well, those tools, they tell you, a simulation of 1,000 sims, what happens in those sims. They don't tell you what happens if you leave salary on the table. So sometimes I have to go a little bit against against what the Sims would tell you. And I might go above the field on some of these guys just because they have that upside and they allow you to leave more salary on the table. These kind of more mid-range options, even though none of them are great options. I'm trying to get a little bit above the field on both Dante Pettis and Equanimeous St. Brown, just because Pettis is at 11% ownership, Equanimeous St. Brown at 8% ownership. They're in that kind of ownership range and salary range where it would take one touchdown in a game like this. That's a low total. It would take one touchdown, one home run from one of these guys to be in the optimal lineup, most likely. So I actually see myself getting just a little bit above the field, and I'm spreading it out because I don't feel confident in any play on this slate, really, other than running backs and quarterbacks more so. But on all of the receiving options, I don't feel all that confident in many of them, particularly from the Bears. So I'm going to be spreading it out, but trying to get a little bit above the field on the kind of grosser options, and then maybe a little bit below the field on the options that I'm actually more confident in. But for me, I'm going to be, I'll probably get to more Equanimeous just because he is cheaper and comes at an ownership discount. You brought up Velus Jones, and I'm curious to hear Matt's take on this. I'm actually pretty heavy in on Velus Jones in this game. I'm going to be about quadruple the field here just because he's 1,200, 4.4% projected ownership. And what I like about him is he's a rookie who has only played 2 games so far. He's a speedster. He seems to be pretty dynamic. They used him sparingly in the first game, but they designed a play for him to get into the end zone his first game. And then the second game that we just saw, he played more snaps, and they again tried to use him in the end zone. I think they did like a run around with him in like the 10-yard line or so. So they seem to be aware that he is the type of player who could get into the end zone. They're going to use, they've used him there a couple times at least. So I'm actually going to be taking shots here. And also the fact that he's a rookie coming into an offense that hasn't been great. Maybe they want to get him more involved coming in at low ownership. I'm going to be taking some shots there.
All right. Okay. Velus Jones, come on down. Enter this disgusting secondary, tertiary wide receiver options for the Chicago Bears. I know he got a bunch of flack for being like 26 years old. I think he's actually 25 and a half as a rookie this year. Gajewski, do you see some viability in Velus Jones seeing more opportunity as this season goes on for the Bears?
Yeah, I think you could play it one of two ways with this. First of all, they invested a ton in him. As bad of a prospect as he was, they spent, I believe, a second-round draft capital on him. He's for sure a day 2 pick. I forget the exact pick, but this is a guy that enters the Bears receiving core that has nobody ahead of it. And at the end of the day, this is like an Ezekiel Elliott situation where you have ownership invested in this guy. And even though he sucked, like they have a huge incentive to put him on the field to try to at least prove to people and everyone around Chicago that they're making correct decisions. So I do think you continue to see Velus Jones. And when I say he sucked, like he completely botched a punt. Like he's supposed to be their punt returner last week. So they had open tryouts at the position. That doesn't really affect his offensive role, but it's just never good when your second round rookies out there like making plays that essentially cost you the game. So that's a concern with Velus Jones, but ultimately in his second game of action, I don't think it's going to be a huge deterrent because, I mean, the Bears ultimately just spent too much on him to bench him at this point.
Makes sense to me. Let's talk a little bit about some things that we've seen. We should mention that Dante Pettis saw 7 targets last week, 1 red zone target. I almost couldn't believe that someone was capable of getting 7 targets in this Bears offense. Remember, the most Equanimeous St. Brown has ever seen in a game this season is 3. He had 0 last week, by the way. That probably changes. Velus Jones, the most he has seen in terms of targets in a game, 1. Can that change on a 1-week sample size? Absolutely. Neil, you were talking about how rookies especially tend to get involved more as we get into the second half of the season. But let's contextualize it yet again. We have not seen more than a 15% snap share for Velus Jones. Still at 200 in salary, he's in the lineup pool. What a day. What a time to be alive. Bears players projected for 1 to 2 points. How about N'Keal Harry? He's also projected for 1 to 2 points. Either of you going for him? Gajewski, start with you.
I think this is probably a question more for Neil. I'm playing a little bit smaller field, so I'm cutting this off at Velus Jones for me, but in your milli makers, I think you could see it. As far as draft capital, he is more of it than any other player in the Bears pass catching core. He just has a much larger sample of being terrible, and he's coming off an injury. But I mean, you narrative people out there, you've got the revenge narrative. I just don't think N'Keal Harry is any good at this point, and there's nothing to suggest he's better than Pettis or Equanimeous St. Brown. So I honestly don't think he sees the field much, especially with everything Neil brought up about Velus. they just have a way more of an incentive to see what Velas has, because there's a lot of tape on N'Keal Harry being trash.
I would agree with that sentiment. I guess we saw what? It just this is bad for N'Keal Harry. Let's move to the tight ends before I throw up. He's not a good player. Cole Kmet is a player we mentioned a couple times. We got a decent projection for him. His salary is actually okay at 4,800. Neil, how are you dealing with Cole Kmet, who, as Gajewski put earlier, is wildly volatile?
Yeah, so currently I'm above the field on Cole Kmet in my latest crunch, which I think I am about to enter. I don't know if it'll be my final crunch, but currently I'm a little bit above the field. I've been kind of going back and forth. I don't feel all that confident in Cole Kmet just because, again, he's in this Bears offense that hasn't really done much through the air, and he's not really. I don't think he has a lot of. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I don't think of him as a guy who can score a lot of long touchdowns. So like one play where he puts up enough points necessarily. Although I guess that in this game, even at 4,800, 10-yard touchdown might be enough. I'm not super confident in Cole Kmet, but he's only getting 15.4% ownership. So currently I'm a little bit over the field. Again, he is. I think he is second on the Bears. I wrote about it on. In my article earlier today. What is he? Second on the Bears. Let me see if I can find it in both routes run and targets, I believe. Let me find him. Maybe I didn't write about him. I thought I had, but I'm not finding it. Yeah, second on the Bears in both routes run with 145 and targets. Those targets through 6 games, 16 targets. He is second on the Bears. So it's really not a high confidence spot. Like that's on some teams that would be so far down the pecking order. On the Bears, 16 targets is second on the team.
That is disgusting.
Yeah.
In expected fantasy points, currently Cole Kmet, in expected fantasy points per game, Cole Kmet is the tight end 42 on the season. That's fantastic. 30th in yards after catch, to your point. 3.8 per target actually isn't so bad. 1.2 yards per route run is kind of league average level. We have not seen more than 3 targets except for one game this season. I do realize I have a couple super chats to get to. Cole Kmet is the only one you guys are rostering. You're not going to Griffin or Wesco, are you, Neil?
Not in any kind of volume. I currently have 2% Griffin, 4% Wesco. I don't have any confidence. These are not guys that I'm trying to take big stands on. That's kind of where I just came out. I tried to give them projections where it was like, I'll get a couple shares. That's where I ended up. I don't love either of these guys.
Yeah, maybe 1 in a 150. I doubt you're wading into those waters tonight, Gajewski.
I am not.
Fair enough. Defense and kicker, in a phrase, they're viable, aren't they? Gajewski, will throw it right back to you. Very high leverage score for the Bears defense. How can they say the tools they don't trust Mac Jones? It's unbelievable.
I think this is a price thing again. I don't know if it's a distrust of Mac Jones, or is it, would you rather play the Bears defense or Velas Jones in like a small field tournament or a cash game build? For me, it's no question the Bears defense. When you start talking larger field is where you have the more interesting discussion here. But honestly, it just comes down to price, I think, for your low risk and why why the Bears pop so much in our tools. And that can go for every single kicker defense on this slate. They're all positively leveraged. So to me, it's like, okay, at what point are they too owned? And at what point do we pivot to some of these cheaper guys? Is, like the field you're playing large enough to potentially make those pivots? I think it's an interesting question, and I don't necessarily have the answer. My worry here is that these lineups have been doing really well this year, basically because Russell Wilson sucks. So, I mean, are the defenses and kickers going to be more owned than our tools suggest? And at what point should we be pivoting is my question. Because these like kicker defense lineups have been smashing.
Hey, that's the truth. Ultimately, especially in an ugly, ugly sludge fest, I like to call these games, the defenses look good. Are you willing to play the Bears defense and captain? And talk to me about Cairo Santos as well. We'll close it out with you, Neil. The Bears, at least. We'll close it out.
In captain, interesting. First, I want to give you guys breaking news. James Robinson was just traded to the Jets, so maybe opening up some Travis Etienne time That's kind of exciting for, for best ball, for, going forward season long. Maybe see if there's any way you can adjust to that for your season long. Bears and captain. I have them currently 3.4% owned in the captain spot for me. I kind of like the Bears. I kind of like both these defenses just because both of these offenses are so turnover prone. I mean, they just, both of them turn the ball over so much that it makes the defenses viable. And we have no confidence in these offenses. So it doesn't take a whole lot for these defenses to be optimal here. There are games where defenses are certainly going to be overowned. Currently we have the Bears projected for 21.4% ownership. I think they're actually my preference. Just you get the $1,600 price savings. I already mentioned Mac Jones, 5 interceptions through 3 games this year, 13 interceptions and 7 fumbles last year. He turns the ball over. So I kind of prefer the Bears defense actually, and they're coming in at lower ownership as well. But I'm curious what our tools say as far as Bears in the captain spot. We've got them. Yeah. Oh, wow. We've got them owned 4.6% of the captain spot, optimal 7.1% of the time. We also have them optimal in the utility spot 28% of the time. So the Bears look pretty great in our tools.
I think they're going to be rostered more. I
think
so?
The
way that these
You're
slates have
right.
gone, I think it's going to be a little bit more, but it still looks like a very solid play. Cairo Santos, similar price salary range there, 4,200. I'm fine with it. He doesn't look as good in our tools as the Bears defense. We got to move on to the New England Patriots. But before we do, thank you guys so much for all these super chats. This is the question we get from Eric Traub every single showdown slate. We love to do it. Neil, you probably know it. A utility spot player projected under 10%. That is your favorite tonight.
It's probably, I'm going most over the field on Velus Jones, so I should say that. I don't have a ton of that's for the largest field GPP, to be clear. Under 10%, probably. Actually, Nelson Aguilar is up there for me, 8.8%, just because, sometimes you get an ownership discount for guys that come in questionable. I think that he is sort of interesting. It comes down to Aguilar, ESB, Jonnu, or Velus Jones for me. I'll just go with, it's probably Equanimeous St. Brown.
ESB is the choice. Gajewski, to you.
Love that. He's my favorite Notre Dame alum. I was going to say Nelson Aguilar, so we can go a little different route here.
Nice.
Like the questionable tag, Aguilar plays a field stretching role for this New England team, so it's pretty good and it has a lot of upside. The one concern is they did draft Tyquan Thornton to be the heir apparent to Aguilar, and Tyquan's looked good in really limited sample size, so I'm a little worried that this is a split. But if you were to just tell me Aguilar plays his old role before the injury, I think that's the best role of anybody below 10% ownership right now. You mentioned the top 4. I agree with you that it's Aguilar, Jonnu Smith, Equanimeous St. Brown, and then Velus Jones in no particular order, but Velus would probably be last.
I'm cheating a little bit at 10.8% projected ownership. Dante Pettis will be my choice. Him in the ESB argument. The answer with many Bears players tonight might be neither, but if I had to choose, Dante Pettis would be my choice. Also want to shout out my filler arc. You're always in here too. What's up, man? NFL putting these types of games on Monday so they don't interrupt the raw ratings. The XFL is coming back. That's for you, Neil. Absolutely. My filler arc. Thanks for the $5. $4.99. I should be exact. We had one more down the list. Scrolling down. Sam, you're back. What's up, man? Is it viable to have a winning lineup with defense or kicker? Absolutely. 100% can have a winning lineup with defense or kicker. Don't even question it. Douglas, pouring another one in $4.99. Thank you, guys. Harris and Stevenson is the play tonight. Who do you prefer as a captain, though? Also, shout out Matt Rainman here from Twitter. What's up? And Gajewski, Harris and Stevenson to play tonight. Who would you prefer of the two at captain?
Yeah, this is one that I've gone back and forth on through the day, and it's kind of just ebbed and flowed with our tools. This morning, we had a much higher positive leverage score on Damian Harris. And I actually like my lineups that I previously built with him a little bit. So I'm kind of, on the fence here because his leverage score has changed and it's not quite as high. But, I already built these lineups that look pretty good with him as the captain. And I largely think that's just because he's cheaper than Ramondre Stevenson. But honestly, at this point, he's more negatively leveraged than Ramondre. The one thing I'll say about this situation is you're making a lot of assumptions projection-wise. It was close to a 50-50 timeshare before Damian Harris went down. Yes, Ramondre Stevenson's balled out in his place. Has that been enough to give Ramondre Stevenson sort of the 1A in this backfield to Damian Harris's 1B? That's not an assumption I'm willing to make. So I think you can also play this as if it's a 50-50. And if you're taking that stand, I think the better price adjusted plays Harris. So that's the way I'll answer that.
Dreaded 50-50 split. I'd probably rather play the lower salary player. That's how you seeing it, Neil?
Yeah, I think so. I think that Harris is probably my preference. Ramondre is a little bit more involved in the passing game, so maybe there's something to that. But I think that in general, I'm going to be playing more Harris as well.
There you go. And last one here. Sorry, Sam. Yes, you clarified your question. You can play without defense or kicker as well. There's no hard and fast rules there. Teddy Wayman also has a super chat. Favorite MVP on FanDuel playing one lineup. We'll just do this rapid fire, Neil, and then Matt.
Favorite MVP on FanDuel. Sorry, real quick. I'm going to change where this is. I mean, we have Mac Jones, the most optimal. We also have positive leverage on Mac Jones. Yeah, I guess. Are we talking large field GPPs because of his large field GPPs? Maybe my answer changes, but for small field and cash, it's certainly Mac Jones. For large field, I think you could throw somebody like Jacoby Myers in there. Looks pretty interesting at 9% ownership. He's a little bit more interesting.
This is rapid fire. This is
what rapid
moving
fire
on to
Gajewski.
Yes, I
wasn't ready for the question.
This is unbelievably rapid, non-rapid.
I was going to say both of those guys.
How about large field?
Same, Jacoby.
Nice. Dig it. Okay, now we bring things over to the New England Patriots, but we do have an awesome promo for our Stokastic Plus Platinum. The whole thing, the whole kit and caboodle that ends tomorrow. So I do want to shout it out. This promo code Hardwood is awesome. It's $10 for $1 a day access. All of our tools, NFL, NBA, MLB, still got the World Series, NHL, MMA, anything that has tournaments, we've got projections for it, and we're ready to go. You get access to every single sport. Click the link in the video description below to get started today. Truly one of the best times of the year to get started with so many sports happening at the same time. Why not get access to everything with promo code Hardwood, including the brand new lineup generator available both for the NFL and NBA, takes our best simulations, our best lineups, and puts them in a randomizer available for you so you don't get duped, you get unique, and you also get huge upside. It's so cool. Check it out over at stokastic.com and use that promo code Hardwood, or click the link in the video description below. We broke down this New England Patriots team a little bit already, so we can go a little bit faster, guys, because we're getting closer to lock. Mac Jones is the starter, though. He's projected pretty darn well. Neil, how are you handling Mac Jones in lineups tonight?
Yeah, Mac Jones looks pretty great for us. He is the optimal captain 14.2% of the time, owned 12% of the time. So some positive leverage there. Positive leverage in the utility spot, 46% ownership, 51% optimal. How am I handling him? Let me take a look. I've got him in the captain spot 20% of the time, 64% owned in the utility spot. Probably more Mac Jones than I should have, to be honest. I've got him in 84% of my lineups, one place or another. I don't know if I care enough to adjust it, because I think it's pretty likely that Mac Jones at 9,800 is in the optimal lineup. I'd probably cut it back a little bit if I do make another crunch, but I don't hate it. I mean, he's clearly one of the top projected point per dollar plays on the slate.
At least he might actually pass, right, Matt? That's like kind of the game here. Yeah, you can get the Konami code rushing on one side, but the Patriots at least have the possibility of passing, no?
I 100% agree. For his volume, which, isn't projected to be great, but it's certainly projected to be higher than Fields, combined with his price, I think he makes for a great option. I'm well over the field with Neil. So hopefully one of us wins something tonight, because it hasn't gone well for me in Showdown so far this year.
Hey, at the very least, Mac Jones, 3rd in air yards per attempt, 5th in yards per attempt. He's airing it out in terms of interceptable passes. Remember, he's been injured. He's 5th in the NFL in interceptable passes. This could go awry, but also at the very least, he throws 32 times a game, more than you can say about Justin Fields. Hey, and if he throws a pick 6, he gets the ball right back. So from a DFS perspective, it's not a backbreaker if he throws all those picks. We also broke down the running back position with that super chat, but are there, if you want to break down Harris versus Stevenson any further, Neil, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so currently just looking at what I have, I'm a little bit under the field on Stevenson, a little bit over the field on Harris. You save 2,400 going to Harris. It has historically been a pretty even split, and I think that that's probably where they go back to. So I'll take the 2,400 savings. Also the major ownership savings. We've got Harris coming in at 28.4% projected ownership, Stevenson 45.6. So just significant savings in both salary and ownership for a backfield that is largely a split, can go either way. So I am above the field, as I said, on Harris, and below the field on Stevenson. Of course, I say that I have a little bit more Stevenson than I have of Harris. So even though I'm above the field on Harris, I have more of Stevenson. And then in the captain spot, they both make for kind of interesting captains to me. We have Harrison only owned 7.5% owned in the captain spot. I'm going a little bit above the field on Harris. We have Stevenson 15% owned in the captain spot. I'm a little bit under the field there.
Gajewski, I honestly think that Damian Harris is one of those players who, just because of the floor, he is a decent play tonight because very few players have a low to middling salary and a decently high floor here. This just feels like one of those nights where even though Ramondre Stevenson has the better metrics, Damian Harris looks like the better value overall. Is that just kind of the way you're seeing it?
That is the way I'm seeing it. And I don't think this comes without upside. Bill Belichick and his staff historically prefers timeshares. We've seen Damian Harris really involved in the red zone, not just last year where he had a sick role there, but he's been pretty involved there this year too. So he has multi-touchdown upside, even if it comes at the cost of a full workload. So I don't think the ceiling is hindered a ton. The only real worry is, all right, Ramondre's played real well. Do they decide to give him a lot of work? And with Bill Belichick historically not doing that, and it's probably just like to preserve his running backs for the length of the season, I don't have any problem getting to Harris at all. I thought Neil broke it down really well in terms of exposures there too. I like Harris in both the captain and the utility spot. And Ramondre is a little trickier because of price, but I think he has the requisite upside there too.
100% has the home run ability in breakaway runs, the ability to turn a single rush into 10 plus yards or more. Only 6 running backs this season have more breakaway runs than Ramondre Stevenson. To me, those are the only 2 you're worried about. If you're playing 150 lineups today, Neil, how many Kevin Harris lineups should you have?
You should have 0. He is not active for this game.
That's correct, sir. Nice job. Okay, we move on to the wide receiver position. Jakobi Meyers is viable, that's for sure. Outside of Meyers, it gets real ugly real fast, but I do want to shout out rookie Tyquan Thornton, 6,600 in salary, a speedster, honestly, speed and size that this team desperately needs. I will be getting to some Tyquan Thornton, even though he looks only so-so in our tools. I get it. He's a rookie. We're going to use more base rates because we have very small sample size, but we've got him projected for a solid 7 points. And I think the ceiling is there, Matt Gajewski. How about you?
Yeah, it is. You're making assumptions based on playing time because they get Aguilar back, who plays the exact same role. And then you still have Devontae Parker theoretically ahead of him, and Jakobi Meyers is certainly ahead of him. So for like a timeshare receiver at that price, I prefer getting to the Bears guys, as disgusting as that sounds when I say it out loud. With that said, there's still access to a full ceiling here. Like Tyquan's been great when he's been on the field, and it's not just that limited sample. He was great in the preseason. He's had an awesome offseason and tons of hype. So with Aguilar coming off the injury, maybe he just flat out plays ahead of Aguilar too. And again, I don't know the answer to this question, but you can build lineups with that in mind if you're a little bullish on Tyquan Thornton. And there's certainly, I personally think, ways to make positively leveraged lineups with him. He's just a little challenging in terms of price for what looks like a dicey role if you're playing things like cash or low risk contests.
Oh, 100%. 100% agree with you there. But if you're talking about things I would like to see, it's the emergence of Tyquan Thornton as a continued and consistent option in this New England passing game. Break Tyquan Thornton down for us, Neil, as well as Jakobi Meyers, who's still projected for nearly double the fantasy points today and has a very high positive leverage score right now in our tools.
Yeah, I mean, Jakobi Meyers is like clearly the best point projected, point per dollar play of these wide receivers. I'm getting just slightly under the field on Jakobi Meyers. I guess let me look at what he actually looks like in our tools. We have him under-owned in our tool. So I'm getting a little bit under the field. That's just because of the salary cap that I'm setting, but I'm actually like pretty damn close to the field. We've got him at 13.2% ownership in the captain spot, 16.5% optimal, 41% ownership in the util, 47.3% optimal. Actually, let me look at what I think I might have. Given him a so I'm above the field on Jacoby Myers, actually in the captain spot, under the field on Jacoby Myers in the flex spot. I like him. He's a great play. If you can fit him in your lineup, he makes a lot of sense. He is the top receiver for the Patriots. As far as I actually I want to say I'm actually going above the field on Devontae Parker is a receiver that really interests me today, and it's just because he's run so many routes. He actually leads the Patriots, if I'm remembering this correctly. Yeah, leads the Patriots in routes run with 168 through 6 games. He's only been targeted 22 times. I think he's a talented enough receiver that my guess would be at some point he positively regresses in terms of target share, that target share will come up. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making assumptions here, but he's 7,000. He's only getting 20% ownership, and he's been a talented receiver in the past. So at that 20% ownership, I'm actually taking one of my stands is I'm going well above the field on Devontae Parker at 7,000. He's an interesting play for me. And then as Matt just broke down, so Tyquan Thornton versus Nelson Aguilar. I'm playing more of Nelson Aguilar than Tyquan Thornton, just barely. I've got about 18% Aguilar, 17% Thornton. And the only reason is we've got Thornton at 21% ownership, Aguilar at 9% ownership. And as Matt said, looks like if that's what the field is going to come to, that means the field is making some assumptions about Tyquan Thornton taking over for Aguilar. And I'm just not totally confident in what the snap counts are and the routes run are going to look like for these guys.
Why does the field have to think like I'm thinking? I want to think uniquely. I don't want you guys thinking like I am. Obviously, Tyquan Thornton scores twice in his first NFL game. That's going to, pique people's interest. I get it here. But they're actually similar builds. Thornton 6'2", 185. Parker a little bit bigger, 6'3", 200. I think Thornton steals Parker's lunch. Ooh. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Neil wins. He's been known to do that once or twice. Anything else? I see Parker and Aguilar projected for about 90% of what Jacoby Myers is projected for if you put them together. Would you play Parker and Aguilar together, Matt Gajewski?
Sure. I don't see any problem with that, especially in that situation. You're probably running Mac somewhere too.
Sure.
And Mac is cheap enough to make something like that work. If you were on the other side, like running David Montgomery and trying to do something like that, you might run into more restrictions, but those receivers aren't too expensive contextually, and stacking them with Mac, I think those builds actually look really good when you price adjust everything.
I agree. Wanted to give that possibility where the ugly double stack of Patriots, I think, is more viable than the double stack of the Chicago Bears. The tight end position is also a two-headed monster in New England, but I think both players from a salary adjusted standpoint are completely viable. Hunter Henry, nice to see you back in the land of the living. The ability to score a 30-yard touchdown was something we thought we could get more often. It happened last week. He's projected for a solid 7.5 points, but he's positively leveraged in our tools. Jonnu Smith is also there. That's what I'll say about him. He's also half the salary. Neil Orfield, how you playing this New England tight end position this evening?
Matt, one thing real quick. Shefty just tweeted, it would not be a surprise to see both Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi play tonight.
Well, that is just horrific. If that is the case, then...
That was Shefty too.
That's the big boss.
Like, that is enormous news coming 10 minutes to lock.
Okay, yeah. That is the biggest news we've gotten all night. Absolutely. Neil, I think the first reaction here is that that Justin Fields now gets boosted up. He's probably getting as many thumbs up as he can if you're using the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. And if you only have one full-time quarterback on a one-game slate, it's hard to get far away from 100%. Is that crazy?
I'm not going to be at 100% Fields, but actually I'm going to make the adjustment. I'm going to lower my Mac Jones exposure. I'm still going to play some Mac Jones because he said it wouldn't be a surprise. He didn't say that it's a sure thing that this is a Patriots plan. Actually, I want to find this tweet because I don't want to misinterpret what he's saying, but I think that's what Matt just said.
Okay. Hey, actually, guys, let's actually break this down because none of us actually know how much Bailey Zappi or Mac Jones are going to play. It adds to the range of outcomes. Thank you, producer Mike, on the screen there. You do see Adam Schefter's tweet that there's a possibility that Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi will be seen at the quarterback position for the New England Patriots tonight. Look, it actually just adds to ways that we can build lineups. If you're hand building right now, if you're adding a lineup or two, now that there's more uncertainty here, You don't have to agree with us. You don't have to say, okay, now Justin Fields is more secure. There's a lot of insecurities I have about Justin Fields' ability to score fantasy points consistently. I think we've broken that down. But I also think that if you only have one quarterback playing 100% of snaps on a one-game slate, it's very hard to move away from him just being the absolute chalk. Gajewski, anything further to add here to this dilemma?
It's real tough to say because like Neil mentioned, he didn't say this was Shefty did not say specifically this is a surefire thing. So I'm still going to play Mac Jones. I mean,
are you going to play 85% Mac Jones? That's the question.
How much is the field going to react to this?
I think they will. I think they will react. But I do think it's so close to lock that some of the more casual players who may have entered earlier today may not adjust as much as we think as we are plugged in 7 minutes here. We are until lock. And yes, Billy, I see on the screens it's smoke and someone else says smoke and mirrors. Stop talking. Says smoke and mirrors by BB. Yeah, it could be smoke and mirrors. Absolutely. Build a lineup based on that narrative that this is all smoke and mirrors. That would mean Mac Jones as a tournament play might even become slightly more viable. Is that a possibility here, Neil? We're all reacting at the same time you are.
Yeah, that's it's an interesting thought for sure that it could make Mac Jones more viable. I actually, my guess would be that the field does not react as much as it should, just because most people aren't watching these shows, don't have these notifications on. So I think that the better tournament play would be to completely X him out. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not completely Xing him out. I think that I'd be more likely to go to 0 Mac Jones than 100%. Like I would be more inclined to think that the field underreacts rather than overreacts to this news. So my inclination would be to, if I were going to make a huge move, it would be go to 0% Mac Jones. I don't think that's what I'm doing. I think I'm going to lower my exposure significantly, but not go to like 0%.
I think that is fascinating. I was not expecting you to say that. And those are the types of contrarian decisions that Neil Orfield has been known to make these days. We got to get to the defense and the kicker position, because regardless of who plays quarterback, these might be viable plays tonight. The New England Patriots defense is 5,600. They're not going to have a lot of chances for interceptions because the Bears barely pass. And Nick Folk, of course, at 4,400 could be viable, a huge positive leverage score as well. Neil, any preference between the two, and talk about how you're dealing with these two players or team in the Patriots on the slate?
Sorry, you're asking about the defenses?
Defense and Nick Folk, the kicker.
Oh, sorry. Okay, let me look real quick. I was just making a new group. I'm adding Bailey Zappi.
He's got to redo 150.
Yeah, I do.
All right, good. We'll show you a little mercy. You're right. Gajewski, I'm going to hit you first for this.
Yeah, so we're talking kickers and defenses on the New England side.
Correct.
Yeah, so these are some of the highest value plays on the entire board. Again, with New England, I think you could spin this two ways on defense. One, people might be scared off of the Patriots because they see the low volume passing attack on the other side. And these are the money plays for defenses, if you will. Sacks, interceptions, they come on passing plays. If the Bears don't have a lot of them, well, that's less opportunities for your defense to capitalize. With that said, I'm going to go back to that Vegas line I saw this morning. Justin Fields was minus 180 to throw an interception. There's a 65% chance on whatever they project his volume to be. I didn't cross-reference it with the attempt projection, but just like, holy smokes, that's a high prop for an interception. So that tells you how turnover prone he is. He also holds onto the ball at an egregiously long rate. So on those very few dropbacks he has, last week for reference, he took 5 sacks. He is a sack-taking machine. So even on low volume, there's tons of opportunity for New England's defense. I also saw someone tweet, they were doing simulations themselves, talking about how they wish DraftKings pricing for Showdown will be a little more dynamic. His simulations said that the Patriots defense should be about 7K on this slate, which tells you they're underpriced for sure. And that definitely fits with sort of the pricing structure we have tonight without a lot of value.
Heck of a breakdown by Mac Gajewski there. I'm seeing it the same way. The New England defense is the pride of this team, the pride of Bill Belichick, and I think it's something that they showcase tonight. In adjusted sack rate, Football Outsiders key pressure statistic, I'm looking at New England as the 7th best defense in the NFL in that metric. Now, some others don't look quite as good. We got into those. The Patriots pass defense up to 6th in Football Outsiders DVOA against the pass as well. They're a great play tonight. And Nick Folk has been a solid showdown play before. And if the defense is doing their thing, then Neil Orfield, as you get your lineups ready, 4 minutes to lock, you're definitely playing the kicker on the Patriots this one game slate. No.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'll have some Nick Folk for sure. I am currently getting to, actually not a ton. I'm getting to like 16% of Nick Folk. I'm under the field. Maybe that's something that I need to adjust. That's just because I'm going to a lot of these other weird options, and Nick Folk is getting 26% ownership. I actually might try to get, I'm only getting 13% currently. I want more than that. So I am going to adjust that a little bit. Everything's changing now that I'm trying to recrunch with this news. It's changing my whole construction, but I am going to try to get to, 20% or so of Nick Folk. I'll probably be below the field, but that's just because the field is getting to 26%.
All right, well, hang in there. Solid analysis. Get those lineups up. We got 3 minutes to lock here. We are going to hand build a lineup here. So let's head to the lineup builder. We're going to do DraftKings. We're going to do large field, Matt Gajewski. I'm going to start with you. Who do we want at the captain position? Again, DraftKings, single lineup, large field tournament.
My favorite guy in large field is actually going to be Damian Harris. And I think this Mac news only helps the running backs because theoretically now you could see some split at the quarterback position. I don't know what it's like. And I do know that there's going to be a running back split, but I also know this team is willing to use their running backs in voluminous roles. And I'm not entirely sure that this is going to go in the direction of Ramondre Stevenson. I think it could be close to a 50-50 split. So I love Harris in large field tournaments specifically. The smaller you get, I'm now looking at Jacoby Myers a lot as the wildly underowned wide receiver one for this team.
All right, we're going to go rapid fire with 2 minutes to lock. I'm going to put Justin Fields in the lineup. That's 27K remaining.
Oh, we're building a lineup.
We're building a lineup real quick. That's all right. Damian Harris and the captain. You did fantastic. I like the Myers breakdown as well, but I'm going Justin Fields because of the voluminous rushing role. Just like you said, Neil Orfield, it's to you.
Let's throw in, that I want to play, and let's throw in I'm gonna go a different way. Let's throw in Ramondre Stevenson. I like the double running back builds.
Ooh, the double running back. Then I'll go with your choice because I like that choice. Equanimeous St. Brown's my second one at 4,600. Now we go back to Gajewski.
All right. Give me Justin Fields.
Yep. Oh, we got Fields already. He's already in there.
Oh, Fields is already in there. I'm behind. You went first then. So we've got 5,800 left. I will take Cairo Santos.
All right. It's Harris, Fields, Stevenson, St. Brown, Cairo Santos. We got 7,400 remaining, and that's exactly how much Darnell Mooney is. Does Tyquan Thornton fit? I'm doing Tyquan Thornton again instead because that's what I want to do. That's what I want to play. That's our show as well. We are at less than 60 seconds to lock. Neil, let the people know where they can find you on Twitter and everywhere else. Where do the people find you?
At PlayerQ DFS on Twitter is the best place to find me. I'm also on the Stokastic YouTube, constantly doing football shows.
That's awesome, my friend. And Matt Gajewski, same to you. Where can the people find you? What are you up to these days?
I'm doing everything college football, DFS, college basketball starts 2 weeks from today. We'll be doing everything there as well. But I'm on Twitter at Matt_Gajewski. You can find all my work there. College, NFL, it's all there. There
is so much good info there, people. Seriously. My name, of course, is Matt Savoca. You can follow me at Draftaholic, and you can find my stuff here at the Stokastic DFS channel or the Stokastic Fantasy Football channel as well with my buddy Nick Lepre at Notorious FNTSY. For Neil Orfield and Matt Gajewski, take advantage of those awesome offers from NHA and the hardwood offer good until Tuesday night, both available in the video description below. For Neil and Matt and producer Mike, we will see you guys later. Let's win some money.